Hello, people. Welcome to another video. Um, so today is going to be a bit of a mixed subject. Um, we'll be talking about some questions you guys have, and I'll be answering them. There's quite a few to answer on that been written to me, some quite long through direct message and everything. Um, so today we're going to start by something that we tested. We already posted on our Instagram. Like we done a video on Instagram today um, in regards to our N44 B20 engine. We had some very good results on it. Um, and I want to bring up that for the simple fact that it's not our first 2-liter conversion we do. So why am I so happy about this one and the other wasn't quite as pleased or whatever? It's for the simple reason of what car is doing with what it has. This is the only reason for it. And it's also to talk about torque and compare what is what and what does what. And this comes down to like on previous videos. I talked about the port speed, like cams and all of that. So I explained to you guys what things do. So it's better for you to understand, to have an understanding of what it does. So today I went through all my data, not all of it, but most of my data in regards of dyno testing that I've done in the past and comparisons on other engines and to see exactly where we are for what we're making. So as I'm not sure if you've seen it yet. Like the car is making 195 HP at 6,400 RPM, which is really good power to have at that RPM. And the cams are very mild. This is why it does the power so early. But so why is the reason that I'm happy with it? It's because it shows the potential the engine has. So the head that is fitted on that engine has quite a lot of work in terms of on the port, but very focused on port speed. I wanted to have a much higher port speed. I was more worried about port speed with right CFM. I didn't need a lot of CFM. I just wanted to have very good port speed. So that head was not really made to make crazy power. Like it still flows to make it flows to 180 plus CFM, so it's enough to go over to 80 bhp. But that was not never really the aim to have crazy CFM on it. It was more the port speed that was the most important to me. So sorry, I just picked the phone because I need to do a math, because the values I have for port speed are at 10 inches of drop in pressure, and I need to convert it to 28. So it has an average port speed at 28 inches of 317 feet per second. Now, for people that know, they'll understand this is a really good speed to have as an average number. Some areas of the port, they were over 400 feet per second, which is crazy fast for port speed. Now, what does this bring? So I'm going to talk about another engine today that I like. I like it. I know the pros and cons they have, but I generally do like it, which is the Honda K20. So I'm using this as a benchmark because it's a very good example how much port speed affects the power delivery. Not power at all, because the power you're going to make is ultimately decided by the CFM, regardless of what port speed it has. The thing port speed is going to do, though, is it's going to get you to that power a lot faster. So you will not need to rev as higher, as I explained to you on the previous videos. You'll not have to rev as high to reach that certain amount of CFM. So it's that is the difference. It's like it's all to do with the RPM. And like I went and opened the printouts for the not yet, not yet. You arrive on time. So I went and opened. I know the Civic Type R a few months ago. So I went to get the database out of it. We done some work on it. We end up dyning it around 40 times. We were adjusting some things on it, and this K20 was making good power, 220 bhp. The torque was at, I got it in here, torque. So this Honda was 200 and I wish I could put this in front of you so you guys could see. So, but anyway, this was 220.8 bhp and 157 foot-pounds of torque. One question I'm going to ask to you guys is, when I talk about torque, do you prefer me to talk about torque in NMs or foot-pounds? I can talk either languages. Myself personally, I prefer NM because it's the unit I am used to from from back home. It's the way I always used to see it. Now I use foot-pounds nowadays because I'm in UK. But I would rather you tell me you prefer NM. Okay, I'll convert this to NM. Just a second. I will change this on the dyno to go to NM. I really need to find a way to put like a screen behind me so you guys can see. I can open on the other laptop, for example, the thing so you guys can see what I'm doing. Okay, now in NMs. So we got in here, the Honda made, as I said, 220.8 bhp. In terms of torque, it made 213 NMs. Okay, now I'm going to do something else just to get the average from 4 to 7. So it's fair for both. Come on. Okay, that's it. So now we got, where are we going? Okay, so this is just so you guys can understand better what the port speed does. Now, the Honda cylinder head has much higher CFM than this head. It's not much higher, standard head is not that much more, but it has more. So, but this is nothing to do with the CFM at this stage. It's not because we're nowhere near the limit of what the head can do or anything. So the Honda with 220 bhp, as you can see, like it makes a lot more power than the N44 V20, but it makes it a lot later. But this is only because of the high lift cams they have. Now, what happens before? So, as you guys know, it has the VTEC, and the lower cam is actually very similar to the cam the N44 is running. So it's comparable at this point. They both 2-liter engines. They both have a very similar cam, but they make completely different figures. So when we go on we start looking at the line, and if you guys haven't seen these lines yet, I'm going to be posting it on my Facebook account. You guys can check it on my Facebook page. Instagram as well, I can do it. You guys leave on the comments as well what you prefer, Instagram or Facebook. So now this is where it gets really interesting. Let's go and pick an RPM. Let's say 4,000 RPM. You're driving your car, and you suddenly put your foot down. You want the car to go, and 4,000, you accelerate, and the car starts to go as you want or as you expect. Now, this is where you can really start seeing what happens. Now, at 4,000 RPM, and bear in mind this is the area where there's less difference in torque, we got already 20 nms more on the N44. So it's not rocket science. The N44 will be faster. At this same 4,000 RPM, there's a difference of 6.1 bhp at wheels. So you guys know, and this is at the wheels, power at the wheel, not at the flywheel. So you guys know which car will go faster. Okay, let's move it up a notch at 5,000. Okay, so at 5,000 RPM, we put our foot down, and in here it's even worse. We got now 30 Nm difference. So the Honda in here has 194 Nm, and the N44 has 225. Now, bear in mind, this N44 makes 225 NMs. Okay, for a 2-liter, it's quite a decent number. Then in here, we now have a 15 bhp difference. The N44 has more. And then it goes like this up to the moment like the VTEC kicks in, and then the VTEC kicks in at late 5, and then it just lifts the curve up, and then it goes up. But the only time they cross, they are the same, is at 6,500 RPM. Is the only place where the Honda actually starts to bring the torque up. And this is where, when the N44 is already going towards the rev limiter. So it's the thing is, if the Honda is on the gears, it's always going to be faster because it's going to have more power at wheels on that rev range. But the thing is, if you're not revving it all the way there, it wouldn't stand a chance. And the thing is, if you started short shifting it, it's a crazy difference. Now, when you start looking at the numbers to see, so in real life, which one will be faster? Let's look at the average numbers, okay? So average numbers between 4 to 7, so we got average power on the K20, 137. Average power on the N44, it's 139. So N44 has more average power on that RPM range. Average torque on the Honda is 195, and average torque on the N44 is 214. So the torque will give you it's not Vanos versus VTEC. It's two completely different things. It's not comparable. The Vanos moves the cams from side to side. VTEC, it changes the duration and lift. It's two completely different things. So that's the thing. Now we look at it. It's the Honda cylinder head has more CFM. Okay, so the only reason why it's not making more power is because the port speed on the Honda is very poor. A Honda cylinder head CFM, if you analyze it, if you just look at CFM, it's crazy because it makes stock, it makes 290 something, it's over 290 CFMs. This is without you touching anything on it. It's crazy the amount of power you can make on that cylinder head. The only problem you have is, if you had like a K20 engine and you bolted it to a BMW gearbox, it wouldn't work that well because the BMW gearbox ratios, they fall too much between gears, and the more you rev it, the more noticeable it is. And then you say, I put a shorter diff on it. That doesn't sort the problem. The problem is on the gearbox ratio. If you have, like, you change, let's say, from third to fourth, the car drops 2,000 RPM. This is just an example. It's not what happens. If you're revving to 8, it drops to 6. You put a shorter ratio, it's still going to be exactly the same drop, but the final speed is just going to be different. So the only thing that will make the car accelerate slightly faster is the fact you're going to have a little bit more torque to the wheels. It's not because it's going to fall on a better power band. No, it doesn't operate like that. So the thing is, and this is one of the reasons why I'm so tied up on the power I can make on like the M42s, M44s, is because I work with a principle, which is not, I don't work to make peak power numbers or crazy power or, if you guys follow me for a while, you've seen most of my work. And the way we do things is we like to have a good average power number. We don't like to have a crazy horsepower number, but then it's not great on average. We want something that is a good balance between peak power and peak torque, and then it has decent average power and decent average torque. I do spend a lot of time on choosing the right things to go with it to so the car is faster. This is actually what makes the car quick, is for how long does the car have the torque in there. It's like, as I explained to you guys before, so you know the horsepower is only the result of the torque times the RPM. So if you have more torque available for longer, you're always going to have more power available for longer. It's plain and simple. So this is why, you know, like for example, on the Dwight car, why was it at 230 bhp? Wasn't it that anymore? Is because I couldn't do any more, or what was it? No. On the cylinder head flow, we still have plenty of room. That had flowed enough to make around 260 bhp. This is the V4 head, not the V5 head. V5 head flows a bit more. But I didn't want to lose the drivability. At that point, I still had a very broad torque curve, and I had good power, so I had a good balance. So the thing was 130 bhp and 230 Nm, and this is a really good number to have. You know, they both match each other, so it shows it's a balanced car. So it had peak torque at 6,300, but it had a very nice torque curve. It came and it was not just very peaky, went up and then start coming down. No, it was very progressive. So I spent quite a lot of time to make it like that. And this is the thing is, it was plenty quick. And I had the car previously with similar power. So this was the second setup I had with that power. And the car didn't have the feel of being as fast. And I know it wasn't because it had less average power. Why? Because at the time, the first time I had the 230 bhp, the car was only making 219 Nm. So it was quite a bit less torquey. Still made the same power, because right up there on high RPM, it actually made the same torque as it made on the other setup. But it didn't never had the same amount of torque all the way through the line. Other thing I've done, and I compared, I put like my 318 versus a stock one just with a map to see the difference. And actually, the 318 didn't have less torque anywhere on the torque band. And this is the hardest thing to get. This is a very hard compromise to achieve, because it's very hard to gain without losing. And to have an engine optimized to that point, it's an achievement. So this is the thing, is what are we going to do with it and make it to achieve the maximum power it can actually make. And that's it. The Civic Type R that with 220 bhp, I didn't find it. Oh, good. Your connection is unstable. Are you guys still there? Well, still everyone is there. Just had a message here. I don't know if I think we're still live. Okay, so as I was saying, I drove that Civic Type R, the 220 brake. It's fast, but it's not exciting. It's you really have to rev it. It's exciting on the way it has to be revved, but it's not really. You don't feel you don't feel that push against the seat. You know, that's the thing. So this is the thing. I like a car that you put your foot down and the torque is there, just pushes through the RPM effortless. And that's the thing. This is why, like on the recent builds I did, I always took into consideration port speed far more than before, because before I only used to look at CFM, and the results weren't quite the same. It's like the power, as I said again, power would still be there, but it's not delivered the same way. The other thing is throttle response with port speed. This is where the biggest difference is how much sharper your throttle response gets with the higher port speed. It's very, very different. It's one of those things I cannot put it into words. It's one of those things has to be felt to be understood. So I cannot really say, oh, it feels like, it's just people have to feel it to understand it. So that's the thing. So when you guys doing a build, think all about balance. I'll tell you something. I've done so many combinations, so many tests along those years, and I've learned a lot by doing the wrong things. I did. So the first time I ever fitted ITVs on my M44 was, I think, 2012. I have a video on YouTube. I think it was from around that time, and I put it on, and I didn't like it. I didn't like the feel of the car. It was so flat down low. It was horrendous. What ITV did I use? S50 ITVs, the one that everyone said, it's fine, it will work well. It doesn't. The problem is, I think most people, the most ordinary people, they cannot. It's not they cannot. They don't have the feel for a car. They will just judge something on, I don't know. It's strange on noise. I cannot explain it because I sat in a lot of cars with very different people, and sometimes I come to the conclusion people cannot feel the car. Now, the butt dyno is so important. It is, but again, not everyone can feel it. And the other thing is, it can be very misleading. I had this was 7 months ago. An M44 that I was doing, and I decided to say, you know what, I'm going to do this from scratch, like start from zero. Forget everything I know and just start from zero. And I done things that people say on the internet to do. And I said, it might be me doing it wrong, but I'll try again. So it's funny because the car what the car had, so it just had a map, and yes, then we started playing with cam timing, which it was noticeable, but then also changed the fuel pressure on it because people say more fuel is more power. And I'm going to be honest, the car felt faster. The car did feel faster. It felt faster. I was like, wow, it's different. It really feels a lot faster. So put it on the dyno, and the car was making close to 10 bhp less. Why did it feel faster? I think I went over this before. It felt faster because it was so much flatter down low that when it really eventually started to pick up, it felt that was stronger. But in reality, it wasn't any faster. It just felt faster. So that's why butt dyno can be misleading, even to someone as experienced as me. It's dyno, the actual dyno is extremely important. Now, there's other ways to see how an engine is performing. If you have a decent ECU, most of them show the volumetric efficiency of the engine. And if the injector is calibrated right on the ECU, they are extremely accurate. Other way to see how efficient the engine is by looking at the injected duty cycle versus the RPM. Like you can, with duty cycle, you can calculate roughly the power. Now, the thing with this is, with the injected duty cycle, and I'm noticing it now that is really cold, is the temperature of the air changes a lot, and the humidity, how much fuel you need to make a certain amount of power. And this is why dyno has correction. However, this ECU, because it reads the temperature, like on my case, it reads the air intake temperature, and it knows how much fuel it needs to fill the engine. It will give you the VE still on an accurate level. Because like on summertime, usually I put the duty cycle an injector is doing, and I put the injector size, how many injectors, and I can see roughly how much power the car is making. Usually it doesn't miss by much. The difference is around, I would say, 3% to 3%. Now, on the cold weather, it's a much bigger difference. Like the 2-3% is up and down. Now, since it is really cold and humid, it's really different, because I put the duty cycle and it comes up with with 5% differences, which like it might not sound like a lot, but when we're talking on powers close to 200 bhp, you say, ooh, 10 bhp are gone. This is the thing. When you have now the velometric efficiency, there's applications to calculate the power it should be doing, but you have to do it right, because you have to insert how much air the engine is consuming, or you just go directly to the VE and put on the VE, you will see how much air roughly the engine is consuming, and you can see the estimated power for that. And like, I don't only use the dyno, I also use that to make sure like it's all up to line. If the three things don't line up by a big margin, I know there's something wrong. So, or the dyno is not reading right, because those maths work around science, and science very rarely is wrong, or I don't want to say it's never wrong, because some people will disagree, but science is very rarely wrong. So this is the thing. I check everything on the numbers. Like, I look at all the numbers to make sure it adds up. If it doesn't add up, it's not realistic. And so this is the thing. I also, the dynos, it's another subject on its own. So I have seen loads of dynos. I have tuned loads of cars on loads of different dynos. And it's like the thing on a dyno is, some people look at the dyno figure as like it's what it is. Unless the dyno operator is doing things right, it might not be right. The dyno might not be calibrated right. And the thing is, why I keep on checking these things, as I just said, is because I want to make sure my dyno is always right. I found, I think it was 2 months ago or 3 months ago, it was early December. I was calculating this. I saw power, which it comes to an N44 I was testing, and it started showing more power than what it should. I couldn't figure out what it was. So I found my the meteorologic station it has to see the humidity, the temperature, and whatever was faulty. So I replaced it with a new one. But if I hadn't looked at that, I'll be like, wow, it's making a lot of power. But because I always look at the numbers and add all them up to make sure like it's working right, I'm able to find there was a problem, because I don't want to, because I do quite a lot of development, and every little bit is that can be a gain. It's a gain that I really look at it like it's a gain. I store it in my head as a bit more knowledge. How did I achieve this? And now, if I had a misreading, I will have misinformed myself. And this is why it's so important to make sure that dyno consistency is there. Everything is working the way it should. You have the differences on the right place. Now, the thing is, the point I want to come with is, dyno does corrections, okay, based around the humidity, the atmospheric pressure, the temperature. So exactly that. It's a scientific approach. And out of all the dynos I worked on, like, I believe they were pretty much bang on. Apart from, there's one that I know was reading slightly more than what it should. There's another that I think it was reading less. So, but because of this scientific approach, I can see roughly where the things were, and that didn't bother me, because like the important thing is the alpha. Is you go from A to B, is you know how much the distance was from A to B. In this case, is you know how much power you gain from A to B, and the gain again is in percentage. It's not like 10 bhp doesn't say anything, because 10 bhp in 100 is 10%, 10 bhp in 1000 is 1%. Therefore, whereas there it's exactly the same gain in numeric value, but in percentage, it's a tenth. So this is the thing. It's like, look in percent, look where you start by dyno an original one, and then see where you ended. And like, for example, this N44, I've done that. So this car, when it first came in, we dynoed it, and I'll open it in here. Just a second, because I had it all here open already. So stock, this car came in, it made 80 bhp at wheels, which came down to 108.8 at the fly. They are supposed to have 115. Like, it's a little bit low, but It just happens, it's not a new engine. The torque was right where it should be at 150 Nm, which is what they are announced standard. This top end difference in power, all it needs is an air filter not to be right for it to lose power top end, and can easily make the difference, because 2 NMs at 6,000 RPM is going to equate to 5 HP, or not to 3 NMs, sorry, equates to 5 HP. So that is the thing. All it takes is that for it not to make the 115. But the torque is there, so it's not a bad engine, because if an engine is not healthy, it shows on the torque, usually not on the power. The power, it comes like the power is more to do if you have something wrong, not the engine itself, more like the breathing of the engine or the exhaust or fueling. But torque is what tells you the efficiency the engine has. So this comparing the N40, the standard 116 engine, versus the one the customer now has on the car, it went from 80 bhp at wheels to 163.9 at wheels. So we're talking at over 100% gain in power, which is quite a lot, especially because it still is an NA engine. Then torque went from 150 to 220, so 225. So the torque is 74 NMs more of torque it gained. Remember, this was not all through displacement, because if you work things right, you have a 1.6 with 150 NM. Okay, this is equal at 95 Nm per liter. So we divide I'm a bit tired today, so my calculation skills aren't that. So you divide 150 by 1.6, that's 93.75. Let's call it 0.8, 93.8 Nm per liter. Okay, this is a good thing for you guys to learn, how to understand how engine is at making not at making power, because the torque is more to do with how efficient the engine is to fill itself up. So, but like an engine that is like most road cars, and they are around 90, they can be up to 100. Some of performance engines are over 100 Nm per liter. So this one is 93.8 Nm per liter, decent. Now we got the that is making 225. So this is equal. Well, this one is easy. Is 112. 112.5, call it 112.3, and then so in here, what we get is if the displacement was the only thing that was making the gain, we will have, so the 93.8 times 2 would have, so the 2 liter, if it was displacement, would have 187.6 Nm. So this is the thing. It's don't think that it's only because of displacement. It's not. The other thing you can also do is 1.6 100, let's go 110 bhp. So you have a specific power per liter. Now this is good because this is what tells you like how good the engine is at making power. So you got the 110 divided by 1.6. It makes, this is very poor. It makes 68.8 bhp per liter, and if it was a liter, you should have made 137. and neither of these are happening. So if I was only gaining on the displacement, I would have gained whatever the displacement was going to bring it at. Okay, sorry, Gary. I got tasked to put things in NM because it's not most people watching are not from UK at the moment, I think, and people said it's better to put as NMs. But 1 foot-pound Gary equals 1.35 NMs. So divide this value of NMs by 1.35 and you have your result. So this is it. So we can see how much we gained in terms of efficiency of the because it has 195 and in torque it makes 225. So what have we gained percentual gain in terms of efficiency of the engine? Let's forget the displacement, okay? So all we have to do is divide the 195 by 137. And it's a 42% gain in power, and now let's see in torque. This is in efficiency, in engine efficiency, remember that. Torque. And in here, in torque, we got 20% more in torque. Now, this is a funny thing because it's like, how come the power and torque aren't the same? They are connected, but it has to do with where is it making what. Okay, so you can have this goes again. You can be making this is the reason why the Honda K20 makes more power than the N44 is because it makes not more torque. It makes, let's say, it makes less torque, but makes it at a higher RPM. This is why it makes more power. Now I have to answer some things in here. Can you refresh me about why called the N45 as N44? Very simple, because it's no longer an N45. It has a completely different valve train. The only thing that has like BMW, it uses the same lifters and the rocker arms. Nothing else is the same. Nothing. And the thing is, it's so different. You cannot fit the original valves, springs, cams. They will not work on the N44 head. Everything has been completely redesigned. So this is it. On the block itself, there were differences as well from the stock to our one. The head bolt thickness are different from our N44s to the N45s. So I decided to call it N44 because I cannot call it an N45 anymore because N45 parts don't actually fit unless it's the head gasket and big end bearings. The rest, it's not really the same. The N44 also has different rods, pistons, like the deck height is different. You know that there's so many differences. It's not the same engine anymore. And the other reason why I called it N44 is because I think it makes more sense to call it N44 because of the legacy I left with the M44. But this is the new 44, so N44. This is why. Gary, I answered you already. Now, sound is weird. Got 20% better NM per liter, but I can hear why. I can't hear why. Well, the 20% more, it's like, as I said, the NM is going to be the result of the ability the engine has to fill itself. Okay, this is when we have the V, the volumetric efficiency can tell you the NM. So, and usually it works on. Let me just open this table. Usually what you can do, it's not like 100% accurate, but the way you can have a good base to how it runs is you get the value of the V. So let's say this car, the peak VE is at 113.2. You just make sure the AFR is spot on. And I mean, like in this case, it has to be a 0.9, okay? So this one is 113, where it has the peak torque on my V table. So 113 times 2, it's 226 nms. So I multiply the V by the engine displacement and it gives me roughly the result in nm. In this case, it is really very accurate because the injector is calibrated right and everything is done the right way. So this is the thing. So, but the VE, it doesn't refer to power, it refers to torque. So the V is the volumetric efficiency of the engine filling itself up at a certain RPM. The power is a completely different thing. Is where the engine has the V that is going to determine the power. Okay, so did you guys hear this explanation well now? Or should I go over it again? So it's just when I turn around, it's hard, but I probably have to put myself sideways and then it makes it easier. Now it's a mess on this board. I'm going to start from this. Okay, I'll start from 0. Yeah, so good. Everyone understood now? So again, we gain in terms of efficiency of the engine on the N44. It has power. It was 40, let's call it 40% more. Torque, it is 20% more. So this is the thing. It's like, it's not only through just putting a 2-liter stroker. And that's why I say to people, just doing a stroker, it's not what's going to gain the power, you know. And as I said, like you do that math, you want to see how much you're going to do. There's other variants on it, okay? So it's not 100% always right, but it's always within these, the way it works. And this, I'm giving you examples of things that was dynoed before and after. So it's not just I'm not making the things out of thin air. It's things that I dynoed on the same dyno with everything done right. So it's not daydreaming figures. It's what actually it's happening. That is the thing, you know. And when it comes to performance, everyone goes like, bigger it's better, it makes more power. Yeah, it's not rocket science. If you're going to have a bigger air pump, of course you're going to make more power. And increasing the displacement, it's what you're doing. But in certain cases, increasing the displacement, it just doesn't offset the gain. If you can make the actual air pump you have breathing better, it's going to make more power. And if I was only going on displacements, I wouldn't only have done I wouldn't have gained all the power I did plus the torque. You know, so this is the thing. It's not, I don't want people to think, it's only because it's a 2-liter, not a 1.6 anymore. It's not. So as it's explained. And again, this the torque gain, it's mostly because of the difference in port speed. I've done the test when I've done the V1 head. So this 1.6, 150 nm, which is 110 pounds. Okay. So people can understand 110 foot-pounds and 50 nm. When I done the V1 head for it, this went 130 or 135. I can search for it in here. So 132. 135 was other build. 132. And this is, I remember this because I was doing the test only in the foot-pounds. So 135, it's 178. You know the thing, what has happened when I've done the V1 head? So this is another real life example. And like Gary, I believe he is still on. is a person that follows my work up really closely. He knows a lot of details about the builds and what I'm doing. He's very fascinated about it. So I tend to share a lot with him because he understands the science behind it as well. And he likes to see these things happening. So why this? And then, the funny thing is the peak power didn't change by much. I think peak power changed by 8 bhp only, which is not a lot. So we had a gain of 28 mm and a gain of only 8 bhp. And you think, well, this is odd because it's completely the opposite of what has happened earlier. Okay, why is this? The main reason for this is because I was using the same cams, okay? And again, a cam will expose the potential of the head and all that nonsense that I explained to you guys before. Why we gain so much NM is because the port speed was a lot better than before. It's nothing to do with CFM. CFM would have get more power, which we did. So we still have more CFM, but only shows by 8 bhp. Now, where the biggest difference was is I used to make at the time, I think it was 148 bhp, and the car went to 150. Sorry, it was less than 8. You know what? I can just go here and find it, but it will take me a while to find it. Right. It's on this. I got a few laptops in here at the moment. Sorry, guys. Instead of trying to guess the numbers, but basically, anyway, I'll try to while this is still starting. So somewhere on this region, anyway. So the thing is, it made not much more power, but the power it was making more 800 RPM earlier. 800 RPM, it's quite a big jump. It's a lot earlier. As a consequence, the car felt so much faster. It was so much quicker. You would never think it only had 8 bhp more, but the average power gain was far greater. So that is the thing. Is like again because it was around port speed. You see, the thing is, some people port heads and the car doesn't make the power they expect. It's because people port heads the wrong way. This is where I see it. But not everyone. Okay, there's some people they really know what they're doing on cylinder heads. But today, I exemplified to someone. He sent me a picture of his, which was Jason. I don't know if he's live today. Usually he's on the videos as well. He sent me a picture of the front part of the port of his engine. And I said, that doesn't say anything to me. And he was like, why? Isn't that important? Like, it's one of the things that counts the least for the performance of a port. Like it's up to around 10% it counts. So it's not that important. Like 10% out of 100. Not to, like, I'm not saying it's going to give you 10% gain working that part. I'm saying the gain you can have on a port, the entry of the port itself, it's around 10% at the most. Like depends how bad of a job you can do on it. So this is the thing. And the way I explained to him is like you have to look at the cylinder head like a funnel. Okay, so it can be really big on the top. If it has a small throat, it's going only to pass the amount of air that throat can pass. So the most critical part on a cylinder head, so now you guys know which part it is. I don't need to tell you the name because I think I just said it. Now let me open this. N45. Now I have that N45 V16. That, boys, I have done so much testing on that engine. You guys don't understand. Oh, I got here. So ported. And now let me open the other one. It was not hard to find because I got everything organized in folders, which I just changed laptop, and I need to redo the same on the other one. This the one. Now to find the standard one is going to be, yeah, found it. Got it. Now let me just, okay. Okay. So at the time I didn't used to have filters on it, so the graphics were all like a zigzag because I didn't know you could use filters on it. Now, here we go. As a matter of fact, peak power, it made no more power now that I'm looking at it. And I think the only reason why it was showing before that it made more power was because it was just a zigzag. Anyway, but looking at this now, it's an eye-opening thing. So we had the peak torque, so it's not this much. I was comparing to a standard one. I should compare to the one that was already modified. So just to, let's forget this. Okay, so because this wasn't optimized, it was like how it is stock. So the pure gain of the head, now we're going to be talking about. Sorry about this, guys, but I have to be accurate so I don't mislead you as well. So we have torque. They start pretty much on the same. Then from like the one with the ported head. Now there's a funny thing in here because I should really look at the power at wheels, and it actually made more power at wheels. It just has a different loss. This all it takes for this is the tires to be at a different temperature. So there's a equation which Gary has taught me that it's usually bang on. It doesn't miss by much, which is, so I get the power. Let's say the power before the ported head at wheels was 1183, and the stock head, and it went ported head to 125.6. Now this is a big difference. The ported head made peak power at 6.4, and the other one made peak power at 7. So it's a big jump. It's the 800 RPM. I remember that because it was quite a big difference. Now we can get the 118 plus 10, okay, then divide by 0.88. And this usually gives you an accurate result. This, of course, depends on what tires you have, but usually works really well. 118, so 128, my point. It's 145. Same for this, so the same formula. Was 10. So 154. So at the fly, they have 9 bhp difference, which is not a lot, but it's the torque, the biggest difference. So as I said, the lines, this looks really bad. If I do this, you guys can see the lines. So, hello, yeah. So the difference starts to be noticeable as low as 3000 RPM. Not a big difference at 3000 RPM. Let me put this in names again because it comes. There we go. So now we are in NMs. At 3000 RPM is a small difference, is only 4 Nm. It's not really noticeable. At 4000, we have a 12 Nm difference. then they go. It's always higher the one with a ported head, but they come close up to a level here. Then at 5,000, 16 nm more. At 5.5, 16 nm more still. It always carries more torque. What happens is average power from to the other is 90 on the standard head, 97 on the ported head. And this head is a V1. It's actually the same head that is on the 1.9 engine at the moment. It's exactly the same head. And the head, it wasn't 182. Now with no spikes, 100, yeah. Well, I have 178, it's 177. Which is not a big difference. But anyway, so this, like we have before 160, which is a good number to have. It's 100 nm per liter. 100 nm per liter, it's decent. Means the engine can fulfill itself properly. But then 177, it's already a bit more. So it's, you know, a standard M42 as less torque than this, they usually show around 170 nms, and it's a 1.8. 175 to 180 you see on the M44 stock, on the completely standard modification. So you can see how efficient that cylinder head is on filling the cylinder. So here, it's 110. So we made the engine 10% more efficient by doing the right port work. This is the thing. And now, in here, we only made, well, 9 bhp. And why didn't we make more? So I don't think I've spoke about it in here, but the reason being is because I left the exhaust port completely alone. I haven't touched it. The exhaust port would probably allow me to push it further. So, to keep the torque line stronger for a longer period of time. And this is the thing, is because the head still is on the standard exhaust port. It hasn't been touched at all. I haven't touched it. I haven't polished it or didn't try to do anything on it. I wanted to see, like when I've done this head, the difference it was going to make if I did just the intake. And I think having a 10% gain in efficiency, it's really good. You could translate this into power if you had the right cams to keep on pushing it further. Because if I moved all this further up, I would still have the same torque down low, but I would peak at a later point, and then this engine could easily make the 160 to 170 bhp. Like it was already at 125 at wheels, it could have gone to 135, 140 at wheels. Of course, with a much more aggressive cam. This was also with a prototype intake cam we had as well, but this was the same cam used on both. And that was the same cam I had on the other 2-liter 1.16 engine that I had. Was far less efficient than the new ones that we make, all because we look at port speed. Now, this seems a bit boring talking about these engines, because the thing is, this is not even related with this engine. I'm just trying to show to you guys what is the effect the port speed has in real life. It can be this engine, it can be a Honda engine, it's on any engine. But this is the ones I tested. This is ones I can talk about. I cannot just go on with theory forever with you guys and just science is all very nice. But then, if I didn't have anything to prove, like the things we've done and the gains it actually has in real life, it will be pointless, because it's just me singing a theory that it never exists. And so because it was never tested. We only know how good a theory is when we test it, and like we have to go on to the dyno to see what works and what it doesn't. And this is the thing: is port speed is extremely important. That's the thing. Now we have another 1.6 that we can compare in here. Let's throw at it. which is a 1.6 that is our N44, and this one has the same cams that as they are on the 2 liter, so it's better cams than this. Okay, the cylinder head has more CFM, and the exhaust port is also ported. Now, this one is trickier to compare because I had a completely different tire on it, so I cannot compare the power to wheels, but I can compare the torque, and so I'm going to open it. So this engine, like I tested a bit of it, not as much as I wanted to test, but there's some decent tests I've done already on it. So there's not a lot I can tell about it, like in terms of power it was making, because it was not fully tuned. I done only 40 pulls. The engine was brand new, and then I had other things to do on the engine. I wanted to check inside, make sure everything was perfect, because it was the first N44 to run the full BDS valve train. And after 40 pulls, I really wanted to pull it apart and see if everything was right. Especially because on the beginning, one of the Vanos pulleys decided to say goodbye, and it even broke a cam. The engine was only running for a few minutes, and it just switched off. I went to see the log, and I've noticed all of a sudden the exhaust cam has moved 80 degrees because, of course, it reached the position of it and the engine stopped. When I opened it, I found the cam was broken, and then I realized it was the Vanos that has failed because it just shifted the cam when I don't know what has happened inside it. It was not a new Vanos unit. It was one that was on the engine that I used as a base to build that one. So it was a lesson that I learned. But still, so this 1.6, not fully tuned, this was a rough tune. But instead of the head, as I said, and the intake port is not that different from the V1. It is the same valve size. Now, does it have the same port speed? I'm not sure. I think they are extremely similar, but I'm not 100%. I cannot tell you, yes, they are the same. The port has a slightly different shape. It has more volume. Okay, so it's another thing that you have to think of. And usually you think, okay, it has more volume, it's going to have less port speed. It depends. You need the port speed on the right place. But this head that is on the rally car, on the rally engine, I checked the port speed, and it had an average port speed of 179 feet per second and 10. Okay, so at 28, which is the unit used nowadays. So the conversion from 0.10 to 28 is you multiply the number by 1.67. So it's close to 300 feet per second. Very. What is an optimized one? It's not fully. It was a rough tune. So 40 runs, it's only enough for you to start understanding what an engine is doing, because I don't start revving it high straight away. So in here, I was revving was not really pushing it hard because I didn't want to break it. I don't. Okay. So it was only revving to 7. So the engine can rev adjusted to work properly. But in here, comparing the others, the thing is, this one has slightly better cam, not like the exhaust cam is much better, but because it's not proper tuned, it's not really a fair comparison. So when we compare it like this, we have, it's the power line, one follows the other pretty close. They're not that far apart, but it's a top end. It really starts to showing the difference, because like we go at, where is it? Power. From 6,000, the other one starts away, and at 6.5 it's 5, and then it just wants to keep on going the same route. So this is the thing. This is 1.6 still, but even with more efficiency, it's making even better torque number. It's instead of the 110, it's making slightly more. So it's making 112.5, which is now 12.5 more than what an optimized standard one has. Now, the thing is, this becomes and what I found, but this is generally again to show like how things react with when you change something. Now, enough of me talking about this boring stuff. Enough of boring you with the real facts. Now I'm going to start reading some questions and answering them. So let me find them. Ta-da-da. So I got Matt Knowles asks me an idea for next one, exhaust. Know a lot of your time focused on the intake side because the gains there are more effective, but I bet most people would like to know few of the things you have told me of late about exhausts. I am sure there is loads more to learn, but even the expansion bit and the converging, diverging nozzle stuff blew my mind. You can even use dyno data from the 2000 STW if you wish. Okay, so this Matt, he came to us. He's our customer. He has one. He hasn't fitted it yet. He bought a stage 3 head from us, and so we dyno this car just before, and now this car is standard apart from a map and the exhaust, and then it has a 4x1 long runner exhaust manifold. Now, what I've seen on his engine that is different from all the others, it's the amount of torque it makes. So his car on just a map made the 190 Nm of torque, which on the standard exhaust they never do. Like when I map them, like I tried many different strategies to map them to get torque up just with the map. I very rarely seen them going over 185 Nm. His car was at 190. I think it's 190. I'm not sure if it's more. I can see I got results in here, so can open it. 44 buttons. Yeah. I'll try to see. Yeah, that's here. So his car made 164 bhp. This one was 186. I don't think this was the final one. Then the thing is, his curve has a different shape from the others as well. So just a second. Okay. Yeah. So his curve is it's smoother the way it does. Usually the M44 goes up, comes down, and then goes up again. This one just goes slightly lower and then creeps up and stays up. So it has a different torque line. I'm going to try to find other one because I don't think this was the final one. Because I never do just one dyno run. I do more than one. This is. So I like to have a few runs to make sure it's done right. So yeah. So the last run it was 163 bhp and 191 nms. As I said, this is usually they don't do this, and the length of the runners have quite a lot to do with it. Like I've seen a lot of testing, not ones I've done, but on dyno as well, where just by going from a short exhaust manifold to a long one, the gain is everywhere. Where it's the most noticeable is at lower RPMs. And I'm going to try to open one. Problem is I don't have in here a dyno run of an M44 just with a map as far as I know. No, we can't. This is not going to be simple. Because the ones are Maizu. Okay. Maizu. Okay, this had already a Porter's head on, I think. This is from a good friend of mine, Ian, at Performance Automotive, but this car had already a ported head. And the ported head usually gains a decent amount. It has a bit more torque, of course, but just right. So, well, as I said, it's going to be hard for me to compare to try to tell you exactly where the differences are. But usually, from what I've seen, it's like the lower RPM, the more noticeable it is. We got the example of my 1.9 with the long runners on the N44 with long runner exhaust manifold versus the short one. I had a massive jump on torque down low. But I think it's not only the size that counted, it was the diameter of the primary is completely different from 38 to 45. But the thing is, you would think the 45 should make less torque down low. It doesn't, because they are a lot longer, so they are going to improve scavenging. The speed is not going to be any less because they are a lot longer, because the 38 ones were extremely short, and also they were unequal length. And when you have an equal length, it just tends to be not effective at all. So on our one, there we go. So let's go and see this, for example. Yeah, so we got here, and just a second, I'm looking for it. There's so much testing done in here. And no, not quite, because it doesn't go low enough on the RPM to expose it. I don't know. That's manifold view one. Last. Okay. Yeah. So one done. So I'll put an average between 2000 and 4000 RPM. So you guys, I'll tell you the difference. So we started to, because that's where the biggest difference happened. It was there. So from 2000 to 4000. So we went from an average torque of 192 Nm. This engine is very torquey, okay, because of the double vanos and everything, to an average torque of 216. We started at 2000 RPM. It's crazy the difference. So 2.3, it was 36 Nm different. We go here to 3000, it's 22 Nm different. Then we go more, we go to 4000 is when it starts shrinking. As I said, down low it's when it shows the biggest difference. Towards the top even now. It was 9 Nm in here, 8.96. So at 4000, 8.96, you are going to feel this massively. So for example, at 2500 RPM, at the wheels, it equates to a 14 bhp difference at the wheels. It's something you're really going to feel. There's no comparison. You cannot compare it. It's uncomparable. So this is the thing, it's the way it does the delivery of it. In terms of peak power, it wasn't that different at the time. The thing is, still has more peak torque. Torque went from 221 to 227 peak torque, so it gained an healthy bit of torque. But this is the difference the exhaust manifold has done. Now this manifold is very long, so it comes 42 into 1, because the 42 into 1 covers a broader area if it's done right. So that's why I chose to do 40 to 21. It's a more, it has a better characteristic for what I'm looking to have, which is the best average power production. So this is the thing. This is what the exhaust does. In this case, it was quite a big gain. As I said, it's just the primary length, the diameter of it, the being equal length and not equal length. And then, of course, because the manifold was more efficient, I could dial the exhaust cam for the engine to be more efficient, so it could improve the scavenging even further. Now, I got another one that was today. Thank you for your video, very useful and understandable. What port speed will you recommend for a performance engine? I have 50, 300 feet per second is optimal for performance response balance. Let me read the rest. Interesting your opinion about it. Okay, so my opinion about it is, as said earlier, like I spoke about the port speed. So the port speed, one thing you guys have to remember is it's going to depend what RPM you are, because the reason why, for example, the Honda makes the thing top end is because it's going to have the port speed, but at a much higher RPM. So it's to be on this, like if you say like on the RP targeted RPM to have this port speed, it's 100% accurate. So let's say I want to have my power to be make peak power at 8,000 RPM. So this is the port speed you want to expect at that RPM for the CFM you're going to make. Then you have to calculate both. There's quite a lot of math that have to go into it to see exactly like where the port speed is going to be. And you know, as I showed you, like the calculated port speed in there, like by the RPM and at a certain pressure, I can change that. I can calculate, see then what RPM it's going to have, what pressure. That's the thing. From the moment I have the cross-sectional area of the head, I can calculate it all, and I can almost theoretically do a torque curve of a certain engine by knowing its displacement, and because I'm going to be able to calculate the cylinder fill of the engine with the port speed. How is that possible that your M42 and 44 cams are better on torque and power, all RPMs? How is idle after tuning? Idle is, I posted a video today. They sound awesome. They have a bit of a lumpy idle. And how come it's possible for them to be better everywhere? There's a lot of time that was put into it. And the reason why it comes down again to the thing we just spoke about, exhaust. The reason why we have so much better torque, like the torque is better everywhere, is purely because it has better scavenging, then it's focused on having scavenging. So it increases everywhere. But the thing is, I got different ways of timing them when I put them on the cars. Okay, I always ask the cost more is going to make, because on the timing that you time your standard ones, the gain in power compared to the standard ones isn't that big, but it just gains everywhere. And the torque is actually the biggest gain, not the power itself. I can tell you exactly like what it does on an M44. I'll just go here because I fitted so many. You know, I got here before and after cams. Okay, stage 3. So, but the thing is, these are stage 3 already. I need to do a dyno where I've done just the cams on its own. But I think this will give me a good idea. So, one. Wow, this line doesn't look right. The old, like before I use the filter, this is what it used to look like. So you see, like a scribble. Realize quite a lot of that happened. and try to find before the cam. Before that comes in. We just make this line better because it's very jumpy. Okay. In this case, so the car went up only by, so from 144 at the wheels to 152. So before the cams, it's not a big gain. It's decent, but it's not huge. But the biggest difference it's on the mid range. So we have. I'll try to show you this way, and you can see like where the difference are on the cams. Still compared to the standard one, and then just picks up. And then towards the top, it actually goes up to the same level. But what this does, this gives you higher average power. And this may off on. Let me put it on the area between 4,000. Thing is, these cams, as I said, they are not made to make crazy power. They are made to give you more average power. So the car is going to feel very different when you drive it. And the average, this car revs really high, so I need to put this even higher. This was revving to 7.5, and it made peak power right up there. So, okay. So the difference between them, you see, like in average power, it goes up, but not by much. Average torque is quite a lot more. And it's the thing again, it's more focused on more drivability than necessarily peak power. This is why it manages to do everything very well. Yeah, they do really good torque. And if you go and see all the results, like you can see, like they come exactly on the same level at what they follow each other, as I showed you, up to 4,000. Then they start split up. At 5,000, there's 10 Nm more with the cam. At 6,000, it's down to 8, but then at 6.5, they meet each other and they just follow the same line. So this is the thing. This was on the same car. This already had our intake manifold on it, so it made decent power already, as you can see. I'm going to try to find another one. Standard cam. Okay, all right. Well, like these are old tests because they are all jumpy. Yeah, again, okay. Already. Yeah, they were. That must have been when I found the filter things. Wow. This one is very noticeable. This car has a much better exhaust. This is one of the Z cars, so it's a race car, this one. And let me see. Okay. Okay, this is it. Take the other ones off. So the thing is, they will only bring whatever you have in there already before, like in many cases. Recommend any exhaust restarts, any gains there? I do, but it has to be done right. You have to take into consideration what you want and then have an exhaust on it. So again, in here, the gain was even better before and after, all the way through the curve. It went from 178 nms to 191 nms in peak. Before the cams was 140 at wheels. After the cams was 149 at wheels. But it's just the fact its average power went from 112 to 121. So the car is a lot faster. This combination on the Z3, we have another Z3 exactly on the same, which is the one that won the Track Day Championship last year, and it competes against the Clios and Fiestas STs and stuff like that, all the 2-liter class. And all it has is an M44 with a stage 4 and the won in class. It's not, again, it's not only the peak power that counts, but it's the average power production that makes a car fast, you know. So that's the thing. And you guys know, like Clios and Fiestas, they have a very capable chassis. So, and Z3 is actually the worst chassis and the heaviest car, and it's the rear-wheel drive one. So this is the thing. So this is what they do, you know. It's I fitted so many now. There's so many sets that I fitted, and the gain is always consistent all the way across the rev range. Now, the thing is, if I time them differently, they are not going to gain. They are not going to gain down low. They might even become worse than the standard ones, but they're going to make a lot more power at the top. But that makes an engine. It's different to drive. It loses the. I cannot really explain to you. It's something you have to feel. It loses a bit the flavor of the engine itself. Like it's for a road car, it's not ideal. On a race car, it's what I usually do on them. So this one was not quite dialed that way. So, but it's all right. This car was making 184 bhp. So it's our stage 4. It's and what I say to people is, depending on what the car has done or how healthy the engine is, they go between, I will say, 175 to 185, 180, 185 on M44s, M42s. I've seen from 172 to 178. It's that's what usually they do. Now this video is becoming really long, and I bored you to death by now. More. So let me see. Always learning everywhere. Okay, I got a question here that I forgot to answer, which is, regardless what is it? Thanks a lot. Always learning. My question is, with the gearbox ratios and the different relation, how does the gearbox ratio affect acceleration and potential of revving the engine? This one is quite simple, but the best way to answer that question is, there's some gear simulators like on the internet. Yeah, I know. I don't know, but like, just like keep on going. So now going back to this, you got like online, you can find to simulate the RPM and speed, and it shows you the full graph of the gearbox. And the best way to work with it is actually to go and have a dyno printout and ask the guy that does it to give you your average power between a certain RPM and or the full RPM, and then you start looking, and you can actually see where it's going to land in torque and power, and how much average power it's going to have during that region. For example, I have a gearbox, a stock BMW gearbox. Usually they fall around 1500 RPM. So this car is revving to 7.5. Let's say we'll shift it at 7.2 because you're not always going to hit in the limiter. 7.2. So 7.2, you take 1500. It's 5,100. So, okay. Now, on this rev range, firstly, you will see where it lands on torque. And let's say I change a 7.2, it will land at 5.7. So it will have 189 nms of torque at this point. So, and then it just keeps going through the power nicely. It's on a nice area. And you will see the average power you have in here, it's 143 bhp. Okay, the average torque you have is 188, but the thing you need to care is the average power. Okay, so this is the average power to. Now, if we went for a gearbox that drops 2000 rpm, we now only have 138 bhp. So you know the car will be slower because it has less average power. So it's the average power that is going to make you accelerate faster. And this is why I keep on saying to people it's very important to look at the averages, because I can get a car and a test in here like the Honda, which is very like focused on the higher RPM. And if you fit it on the Honda, I can tell you now, but it's on this laptop. Uh, Here we go. So let's say the Hondas have a very good gearbox. People, everyone knows that. Their ratios are fantastic. So let's put this, like with their ratio, they follow, I think it's around 1000 RPM. So let's say between 6 or 6.5 to 7.5. Okay. So in here, we have an average power of 183 bhp. Okay. Now on this car, let's say we put a gearbox that drops 2000 RPM instead. And in this car, it's going to be very drastic because so it was at 183, it goes down to 164. All of a sudden, you lost 20 bhp of average power. So on this car, to put a gearbox that it's not like the standard one, hey, it will be a big problem. The wrong gearbox selection in this engine, it's really a big problem. So you've seen I just added 1000 RPM. I can add just 500. But in 1000 RPM lost 20 bhp average. So if I put I think if I put just 1500, let's say it was a BMW box, it is 173. It's 13 bhp lower just because it's not on the power band. So the way to do the right thing is to go find the ratio, see how much it drops, and then work it on your power band if it's going to be compatible with the engine. And again, this gearbox, this is one of the reasons why I make the engines the way I do. It's not going to be as much as affected by the gearbox. It will work with any gearbox. And I give a good example. My 1.9 series has a 4:1 ratio, diff ratio. And when I fitted it on, I'm going to be honest, I went from a 364 to that. I couldn't feel the car accelerating any faster. The car has so much torque everywhere. It doesn't really expose the torque anymore. It swallows the gear quicker, but it's not any faster. But it works well only because of the RPM I'm going to have on the car. So otherwise the gears are going to be extremely long. And this is the only reason why it stayed there. Otherwise, I would have gone back to the standard diff ratio and just leave it on the standard diff ratio because it just pulls through the gears nicely. And that's the thing. Again, I want to keep the engines the way that the torque line is usable. If you have a broad torque band, you know you're going to have a fast car. If you have a narrow torque band, you know your car is not going to be that fast unless it's really well geared. Now, I showed you guys today, like real life testing, what things do, and what things don't do, and what works, what doesn't. And I hopefully now you guys fully understand, like the way to analyze like a power curve as well, to see how to pay more attention to like the selection on things on what you're going to pull to your head in terms of port speed, like how the impact is going to have. And the other thing is, the one thing I really would like you guys to understand that is very critical, to understand seeing how efficient an engine is. And the best way to see it is you see the torque they do per liter and the power they do per liter. You start putting that on the table, and then you can start seeing if an engine is making it's actually good or it's bad. If you have a 5 liter, it's easy to make 500 bhp. It's 100 bhp per liter. It's not that hard to do. Or 400 to make 400 bhp out of a 5 liter is super easy. To make 400 bhp of a 4 liter is a lot harder. So that's the thing, you know. So it shows the efficiency of the engine itself. Also, see, the other thing you can see is like the torque versus RPM, because that will tell you like how good the head is, and it tells it. The thing is, from the moment you start understanding how things work, you will start figuring it out in your head better how to improve your engine. So this is the thing, you know. Anyway, guys, I'm going to leave it for today. This has been a very long video. It's over an hour and a half, so over 90 minutes of video. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's been, I don't know if it has been boring or not. This is one of those type of conversations that people sometimes don't engage on it. It's a trickier one, but it's genuinely like this is just generally to show what engines do, not just one engine. This is an example that it will be applied for any engine that you put it on. Hi Bruno, could you kindly give more than 9 hours notice for live videos for us people in Australia, as we are asleep, we don't know. Okay, this is going to be the days for the live videos. Mondays 7 p.m, Wednesdays and Saturdays. Because of the guys in Australia, like I understand it's very early for them. I am thinking I might give it another half an hour, so I can stay another half an hour in bed, or 8 o'clock. If you guys want me to do an hour later, so it's better for you, I really appreciate the viewings you guys have. I don't think in UK is going to affect much the people seeing it at that time. 1 hour later is not a problem. It's not like I'm entering through the night. It's 8 p.m. So I'll start doing it that way. As before, have a good think about the questions you want answered. And now I really want you guys to write a topic for me to speak about on next video. So what I'll do, I will see your comments, and I'll start work on there. From now on, I'm going to be based on your feedback to do the next video. So I think it's better for all of us. So for example, let's say one person today, we got Adrian, we got 11, I don't know your name, just says 11. So whoever is watching, I will say, let's say Adrian says a subject, I will cover it on the following video. If 11 had said a subject, I will cover it on the other video, or I could combine both in one video. So it's one of those. You guys decide. Sorry, I dropped my pen. You guys decide what you want me to do. But I got plenty. Herbert, see if I don't forget the name. So I got plenty of testing. I got a massive database, not only on BMW engines, Honda, Ford, Porsche. You know, it's just I know loads of cars. I tuned quite a lot of them as well. So we could go from there. I would love to hear more about the gearbox ratios. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. I'll write it on the board. I'll prepare a nice board for you guys to show you like the best way to select. But today I gave you a good example of where to select, and it's always better to have your average power, or at least your dyno printout. This is one of the reasons why it's important to know how to look at the dyno printout, because if you know how you look at the dyno printout, you can look at your engine, and you can actually make your car faster by changing the way you drive it. You see, so you just select the broader power area, and this is why it's important to look at the power at the wheels, not power at the fly, which is something that in UK people still think a lot about the power at the fly. Power at the wheels, it's more crucial, but of course things change when you change a tire. It will change the power at the wheel. That's it. You know, going from a road tire to a semi-slick, it's a 15 bhp loss usually. A rally tire, it's a 20 bhp loss. So this is the thing. So you have to take into consideration what tire you have, and then you can work out probably the right ratio on things. Guys, thank you very much for this video. I know it might have been boring for some of you. Some people have left early. They fell asleep before or hit their heads on the keyboard. I don't know. I see you all on Wednesday, 7 p.m. UK time. Stay safe, guys. I'll see you next time.